Hello everyone, welcome back to another Summoner's War video. This is the last one standing, and in this video we'll be talking about the 11 monsters that you basically need to farm all the 5 dungeons in Kairos. We will be looking at the minimum rune requirements per dungeon and per monster. We'll also look at the proper speed tuning so that your farming will be 100% safe. So just a disclaimer guys, all of these themes are already well known and popular in the community. You can look for Reddit guides for a comprehensive explanation of how each of the teams are built. Just summarizing everything that is known in the community already, and I will just show you my runes and how I crafted these teams. So let's talk about Giants B12 first. So for this dungeon, you will need Lucian, Second Awakened Sath, 2 Milias, and Second Awakened Tatu. And if you can see in the second screen being shown to you, an example repeat battle result is pretty fast for this team, ranging from about 30 as the fastest and about 50 seconds as the average clear time, totaling to around 8 minutes for a 10-time repeat battle completion. And one of the important things for this dungeon team is the proper speed tuning. So based on other YouTubers guide as well as Reddit guides, so Lucian should take first turn for this team because we want Lucian to use his amputation magic every start of the wave. So based on my experience, at least plus 51 bonus speed is enough for Lucian to take first turn every wave, meaning to say Lucian will attack first even before any of the units in the trash waves. And that is if you have max speed totem or the speed tower. So if you don't know already, the speed tower applies only to the base speed of your monsters. So for example, if Lucian has 103 base speed, so 15% of the tower adds up to that 103. So 103 times 1.15 plus 51 would be a total of 169 speed for my Lucian. And for now, it's enough. So I don't intend to add more speed to Lucian. Now, however, the critical aspect that you will have to look into is how to speed tune the rest of the units to this speed cap. So if, for example, in my case, if 169 is my fastest unit, I should be able to make sure that the rest of my units would be less than 169 in total. Say for example, Sath. Sath has a very low base speed at 91. So Sath needs more bonus speed from runes compared to my Lucian. So if you see here, 91 times 1.15 plus 60 is just about 165 speed, and 165 is just below 169, so Sath can take second turn with plus 60 speed on the runes. The Milias, on the other hand, since they have higher base speed than Sath requires much more lower bonus speed stat from your rune sets. So in my case, I need them to be at plus 43 and plus 40, which brings their total speed to around 162 and 160. And the most difficult to achieve, or at least the most crucial to achieve, is tattoo should be the last unit to move in your team, and it's sometimes difficult to achieve this very low speed considering that she has a very high base speed of 111. But in my case, so plus 31 speed tattoo is enough for her to take the last turn. Now, why do we want Lucian to take first turn and then Saf second turn? So let's talk about the skills of these 5 units and why they are important to be speed tuned this way. So what we want every start of the wave is just like what happened, no? For Lucian to use amputation magic right off the bat. We want that because that reduces heavily the time it requires for your team to clear the dungeon. So, however, Lucian does not have the perfect AI. Most of the time, he will use either skill 1 or skill 2, and that's where the discrepancy in the clear time comes in. No? So, that's why the fastest, if everything is perfect, this dungeon run could be just below 30 seconds. However, since the AI is not that great, no, so it's not perfect, mm, but nobody is, right? So since the AI is not perfect, so you have that discrepancy of about 30 to 50 seconds clear time for each wave. Now, so we want Lucian to use amputation magic in waves 1 and 3. If he does that, then it's all good. Now for waves 2 and 4, you want Sath to be the second unit to attack because of the second part of his passive. So if we will read here, so each attack of Sath disturbs the HP recovery for 2 turns, but we don't necessarily need that for this dungeon. And it inflicts continuous damage if you attack an enemy on your turn. So, if we understand it correctly, so the first part has the 50% chance, no? So the HP recovery has the 50% chance. But ideally, you should land continuous damage every time your Sath attacks. No? Now, the only problem is the dungeon is water and Sath has element disadvantage, so most of the time that's another source of discrepancies in this dungeon, or inconsistencies in this dungeon, is that when Sath is not able to land any continuous damage whenever he attacks because of glancing or resistance, no? Due to the element disadvantage. But you want Sath ideally to land his first dot because of Milia's passing. No? So Milia inflicts continuous damage on the target for 2 turns with every attack. Now the second part of the passive is that if the enemy has already one continuous damage or a continuous damage harmful effect, Milia's attack will add another continuous damage for 2 turns. So, meaning to say, if Sat was able to successfully land one continuous damage on the enemy, the moment Milia hits, no, she will land 2 instead of 1 continuous damage. So, and the next Milia, since there would be already 3 total continuous damage, she will add another 2, totaling to 5. Now, 5 is the minimum number for one-shot dot team with Incinerate. So, why is that so? So, Incinerate, when you second awaken your tattoo, what happens is that uh, the enemies that is attacked by tattoo, she blows up the continuous damage granted on each target, no, to inflict the damage that it's equivalent to the target's continuous damage. So that's like tongue twister, but let's reinterpret what does that mean. No, so we have to understand that each continuous damage harmful effect reduces your enemy's max HP by 5%. So if you have 5 continuous damage, so that's 5 times 5, no? So that's 25% of the max HP times 2 turns, no? So 25 times 2 is 50. So if Tattoo hits an enemy target with 5 continuous damage for 2 turns, that's 50% of their health reduced, no, after this attack. The synergy between Sath and Tattoo is that there is another aspect to the second awakened Sath passive, in which it increases the amount of the damage all allies and all enemies receive from continuous damage by 2 times. So what this means is that if Tattoo incinerates a total of 50% continuous damage, by Sath being present in the team, no? So that 50% times 2 becomes 100%. That's why Tattoo can one-shot boss monsters if you are able to land 5. So basically, that's the principle behind this team. So amputation magic clears the waves 1 and 3 with one skill, and then waves 2 and 4 should ideally be one-shotted by Tattoo if 5 continuous damage lands with the first 2 hits or 3 hits of Sath and the 2 Milias. So that's why it's fast. Now that we know the proper speed tuning and the principle behind this team, now let's now go to the rune set. But before that, let us let us first sell this trash runes from this run. Okay. Now let's go to the rune sets. So there are a few aspects that you have to look for in terms of creating your dot team for Giants B12. So for one, it's important for your Lucian to achieve the stats for clearing Trash Wave in one hit with Amputation Magic. And from my experience, since I'm using one fight runes for with one of my Milia, I found that plus 2025 uh, bonus attack from runes and 227 critical damage is enough to one shot the trash wave. And that is to mention that is in consideration of the artifacts effect, you know. So ideally you should have artifacts with additional damage according to a certain stat, and the best one would be attack, since you will be pumping a lot of attack stats on your Lucian. However, if you can probably add a more attack here, maybe 2100, so your artifacts would be not really that important, no? But in any case, so you just have to balance, no? If you are able to have additional damage artifacts better than this, then that should be helpful for you, you know? One thing that you should also note is that I was able to farm this artifact with plus 17 critical damage, so that technically my amputation magic is 227 plus 17, which is around uh, 244 critical damage total, if my math is correct. So that's one of the hardest part of building this team, making your Lucian fat enough to one-shot the trash waves. But if you achieve this, the rest are relatively easy. Uh, So I say this because for the rest of the units in this team, all you need to have is a certain amount of HP and defense, as well as high accuracy. You know? So for Saf and Tatu, you need to have two sets of wheel runes on them, because they are fire. They're both fire units, so they are much likely to be stunned or frozen by the towers or the uh, enemy giants. So having two will runes on them provides you with a safety net that they will not be stunned, so they can dish out their continuous damage and the incineration right off the bat. Now, important to note as well is that since Sath has element disadvantage for this dungeon, you need to stack as high accuracy as possible, and the minimum should be 85%. But in my case, since I had more than 85, then I shot for 96, no? But you will see in the different runs that even with 96 and 99 accuracy on my Milia and Sat, they still miss to land dots uh, every now and then. So accuracy is a lie. Nonetheless, what we can do is just to have as much as we have to mitigate the RNG. But for Tattoo, you don't necessarily need accuracy on her. So you just want her to incinerate, no? So you just want her to survive and use her third skill. Now, much of these stats are pretty much random, in a sense that there I just look for the minimum threshold, which will enable all of my team members to be to survive even with the counter attack of the boss, or even if nothing lands and the the fight drags for quite some time, you know? So you can refer to these stats and treat them as perhaps a minimum, no? But I don't necessarily have the data for what really is the minimum and maximum for this, but at least this can be a helpful reference. Do take note that I have two shield sets for this team. So one for Lucian and one for Tattoo. So this is coincidental in the sense that it's just that I have a very good slot 6 and slot 2 attack percentage runes for shield, which I use for Lucian, and then for Tattoo I'm looking for negative speed runes, and it's shield runes that were available for her. But nonetheless, I think shield rune helps in the survivability of your team as well. But if you don't have shield runes, so just compensate it with more defense and more HP. The rest of the artifacts are trivial. I don't even have artifacts on my Milia and Tattoo. And pardon me for not being able to update the stats on the Milia. If you can see in the live repeat battle, so my first Milia is already max killed, but in this what do you call this? In this example, no, so she's still around level 37. But the point here is, even with this stat, no, so even with the lower stat of the 5-star Milia, that is already enough, no? So she can already survive most of the time. And then for Tattoo, so my Tattoo is already level 35 in the current dungeon run, but do take note that if you achieve this stat at the least, she will be able to survive any attacks or counter attacks from the boss. Sometimes I do notice that there would be instances wherein this unit, although it's already stable, sometimes it dies. I think that is just when everything is resisted or nothing is landing, like Lucian is not using the proper skills, and then both Milias and Sath do not land anything. But that's pretty rare. uh, the mitigation, the risk mitigation for those occurrences is actually the violent runes on Milias. Actually, you can forgo violent runes because upon observing, sometimes the violent runes adds more time to the dungeon run. However, it's also a form of safety net. So I think you don't necessarily need 20 seconds for this dungeon. So even 30 or 40 seconds should be enough, and that should be decent, no, for your runs. There would also be instances like this wherein they are on the verge of dying, but most of the time uh, they still pull through. So like in this case, for example, after incineration, everything is just deleted. So, and there you go. So this is the summary of your minimum requirements for a successful dot team for GB12. So I hope this was helpful. Okay, so now that you have a successful mm, dot team, so actually it's very efficient because the same team can already be used for the Steel Fortress B10 or the artifact farming for attributes. Now, similar principle. So you want Lucian to take the first turn to one-shot the Trash Wave like that. And then you want Sath to land the first dot so that both Milias will land 2 dots each for Tattoo to incinerate them in one shot. And you can see right there, live, we just got the fastest clear time for this dungeon at 23 seconds. So nothing much to say here, but this is one of the best use of your resources. So it's definitely worth it. So please, if you are new in the game or if you don't have this team already, farm that Second Awaken Sath and Tattoo and build 2 Milias. So we will have another set of free 7-year scrolls. If you don't have Milia, you should put them in the 7-year scrolls so that at least you can have 1 or 2. No? This dungeon is also not perfect, so most of the time there would be instances like this wherein something got wrong or resisted and the team almost dies, no? But most of the time they pull through together unless RNG really goes out of your way. But yeah, I think it's pretty stable and it's one of the fastest runs that you can have. Let's also discuss the skill up. So for Lucian with 2000 days of playing, of course my Lucian is max skilled. But for Sath, he doesn't have any skill up. Tattoo does not have any skill up. But I think if this is not 100%, the additional skill up harmful effect rate will be beneficial for stability of this team. For Milia, actually, you don't necessarily need skill ups for them because the dots for Milia is with the passive. So it does not have any harmful effect rate, meaning to say it's 100%. So these ones are for the attack speed slow and the attack bar reduction, and this one is for the attack bar absorption. So you really just need 2 Milias, and you don't necessarily have to skill them up for a successful dungeon team like this. You see the range, so sometimes this is 23. Sometimes it goes to a minute, and then it goes back to around 26. But it's so satisfying to see when Lucian and Tatu's AI are perfect. You see right there, Milia, the second Milia did not land any continuous damage. Now let's talk about Dragon's DB12 team. So for this one, you will use the very popular Tricaru-Verde-Pang team. So the principle here is very basic. The triple Icaru team relies on your Icarus to team up with three other units, including Verdi who will push up the attack bar, constantly cycling turns and killing enemies that they touch. No, but however, the crucial threshold here is achieving this requirement for team up, because team up increases the number of allies that you attack together with based on the Icarus defense. No? So, and basically for speed tuning, you have at least one Ikaru with plus 89 speed. That is with consideration of the tower, max tower speed bonus, as well as dungeon skill bonus from Verdi. So, and if you remember the computation, so that should be 108 times 1.43, so plus 89, that should provide you with 243 speed. So, and that is about approximately the minimum. I think it was plus 87, 86, if I remember correctly, from the comprehensive guide from Reddit. So, but basically, if you need a reference of a working Tricaru team, so this can be something that you should aim for. No? I'll link down the Reddit post for your reference below. So, but nonetheless, so if you have this team, you will have a stable 1 minute Dragons DB12 farming team. Yeah. So the idea here is the first Ikaru should be speed tuned to the minimum requirement, and then the next two Ikarus, their speed values doesn't necessarily uh, mean so much as long as the last Ikaru attacks before Verdi. So that's just the requirement for speed tuning here. So this can be plus 65, this could be plus 40. No, it really doesn't matter as long as they are in between your Verdi as the slowest unit and uh, just below the threshold for the fastest Ikaru. Now, apart from the speed tuning, so we've already talked about the defense requirement. So, and for the defense requirement, there is a computation, but if you look at my team, no, my team is using almost all guard runes with just one determination set. So remember stats before rune sets. So if you can achieve a certain stat with a certain rune set, then that should be enough for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be focus, it doesn't have to be what they call this blade. No, as long as you get the proper defense stats as well as accuracy and certain crit rate. So if you will look at my Tricaru team, so what I did here is to balance my rune set across the three doggos. So I have my highest accuracy with the first Ikaru because he will hit first. So ideally, he should land the defense break together with the other two Ikarus. But you see, my third Ikaru has no accuracy. So most of the time, he doesn't contribute to that defense break. So, and ideally, you should aim for 85% once again, especially that the dragon boss has 100% resistance, I think, or very high resistance at the least. So, what I did here is since I cannot reach for 85% accuracy, at least I'm trying to aim for more accuracy with my artifacts. So my first Ikaru has a total of 70% accuracy. And then for my second Ikaru, this is 49 plus 17. So that's 66%. And then negative accuracy for the third one. However, if you will also look at the damage, I've also uh, balanced it in such a way that the third Ikaru is focused on damage dealing with 80% crit rate and 121 crit damage, while the first Ikaru is more of the support with not much damage, and the second Ikaru is the balance between the two. So it has good accuracy, but it has good crit rate, but not good critical damage. Now, another important aspect that you will look at here is your Verde heal stats. So you want to pump as much damage as possible for your Verde heal. The more damage you can put on your Verde heal, the faster and the safer this dungeon team would be. Now, if you will look at my Verde heal, it's not the best Verde heal. It's just enough with plus 2005 bonus attack from stats from runes, and then just 190 critical damage. Now, one thing that I've learned while creating this dungeon team is that if your Verde heal is not the best in terms of damage output, it's also critical for you to invest in health. So in my case, before, I did not realize why my Tricaru team is failing even though I had hit the threshold for uh, the defenses of the three Icarus. After a few observations, so I realized that if your Verde heal does not kill, or if your team does not kill the boss before his last breath, uh, your Verde heal might die, and if he dies, then you will fail the run. So that's why for this Verde heal, I put uh, plus 10,000 HP and just enough damage for it to survive and kill the boss within 1 minute. No? So if you will look here, there's the last breath. So if your Verde heal is not uh, tanky enough, he might die. One important artifact that you can also use here is, aside from additional damage based off stats, so uh, this one is kind of a waste here, in a sense that my Verde heal is low, so it's much better to use additional damage proportional to attack. But another artifact that is underrated for this is life drain. So if you have life drain artifacts or recovery rate from skill 1, so that would also be helpful, because every time Verde heal is taken by the Ikaru, so he will heal himself. And of course, critical damage is also important. But anyway, so this is pretty much straightforward and pretty much popular already. So I don't think much of you would have problems with triple Ikaru Verde heal compositions. Yeah. In terms of skill ups, none of my Icarus have skill up. No? So if you want a slightly faster run, I think it's worth investing skilling up the triple Ikaru. But I would dissuade you from using Devilmons, because that's pretty much limited in the game, and you can use them on much more important units. So I think 1 minute Dragon's DB10 is enough, good enough for Verde heal. So as you can see, if you skill this up to the max, that would be very much helpful. But I'm lazy, so I don't have max skilled Verde heal. But usually he dishes out the stronger damage from skill 2. So at least my skill 2 is max skilled. So, but if you want a slightly faster run, so you should invest in skilling up your Verde heal. Tan, so you will see the best time is 56, but it averages around 1 minute. Now, another important thing to note is that if you are already able to build your triple Icaru, it would be much easier to also build a Necro 10. You will just replace Verde heal with Astar. So, and similarly, the principle is that you have the triple Ikaru moving first, and then Astar with the slowest speed tuning out of your team. And if you can see in the sample repeat battle results, this is also around 1 minute average clear time for Necro B12. Now let's look at the rune requirements for this dungeon. So one of the things that you have to understand is a star requires vampire runes. So while that is a little bit mm, contradicting in the sense that you obtain vampire runes from Necro, so it's uh, important in a sense that Astar should be built as high HP as high attack as possible. But in order for her to survive the different waves as well as the counter attack from the boss, she should have vampire roots. And her passive makes it in such a way that if her HP gets lower, she deals 100% more damage. So that's times 2 of your usual damage. And she definitely benefits from additional damage artifacts, although since those are rare, I did not invest them on her. No. So as far as skill ups are concerned, so I don't have her max skilled, but you can fuse the Wind Magic Knight if you want to skill her up, but it's not necessarily required. So she works okay with these stats. So you will see that this might probably a little bit high of a rune requirement, but it's obtainable in a sense that I did not use any legendary rune, or at least just one for this rune set. Now you can even use rare. I think this is the only one which is legend, and I put it here because it lacks speed and it has high critical damage, but the rest are fairly attainable rune sets. No? So one thing that you should also take note for Necro is that while speed tuning is important, the Necro boss has a skill to suppress speed. So I think the speed cap at boss stage is just around 130. So you can definitely work this out with negative speed monsters like this Astar. No? So just plus 36. So you can concentrate on dishing out more damage. So the idea is fairly simple. So as much as possible, your triple Ikaru brings Astar every so often. So her skill 1 is an AoE, so she deals with a lot of damage while being teamed up with the triple Ikaru. And then in the boss stage, since you have a counter for the number of hits before the shield comes down, so teaming up with Astar with her skill 1 hitting 3 times plus the Ikaru's hitting 3 times as well, so that's already 6. So you just need another 1 hit to break the shield, and the rest would be raw damage directly thrown to the boss, which makes it fast. An alternative to this team would be your standard twins team, but if you don't have the twins, and you will definitely create your triple Ikaru Verde heal anyway, so to minimize the investments for building more monsters and focusing on farming runes, So I would suggest to use your triple Ikaru plus build an Astar. So if you don't have Astar as well, so please use your 7-year scrolls to summon her. I don't think she is fusible, no. But her sister is. So for skill up, but if you will have a chance to get her from events, yes, please make sure you will do so. So farming Necro is still important in 2021, even though you have Elunia, because you can never have enough will runes. So for PvP, but uh, Necro also provides you with the highest mana return. So if you are missing mana, so you can either farm Necro or do more BJ R5 runs. However, it's since this is 1 minute runs, so you will have more savings in terms of crystals farming Necro than farming R5. Eh. Okay, let's leave it for now. So like for example, if you will sell a blue rune from Necro, it's about 20k. In giants and in dragons, usually the two sets like guard, focus, endure, energy, and blade cost very low. So if you are having troubles with mana, then Necro is the best place to farm those mana. Another thing to note why it is important for your Astar to be on vampire routes is that your the trash wave Magi or the dark golems reflects 15% of the incoming damage. So in order for your Astar to survive, she should have vampire sets, no? Because if you see there, there's a lot of rejected damage coming from her attacks, but with recovery from vampire runes, that is mitigated. So that improves her survivability and therefore the success of your runs. And finally, your triple Ikaru Verde Heal team can also be used for Punisher's Crypt B10. So basically, you will just add, or in my case, I added another unit in the form of Pang, for this dungeon. But other people actually just use the same triple Icaru Verde team that they have for DB10 or DB12. No? But in my case, I have issues with stability on that. So probably this is the dungeon that is most difficult to stabilize because of its mechanic. But at the same time, I have found that adding a unit like Pang, which reduces the speed buff of the boss, and also put a attack slow on her first hit, is very much useful for this dungeon. Now, one of the important things that I have learned to stabilize this dungeon run is in the boss battle, I kill the left crystal first. No. So that crystal, I think, cleanses the boss. And you don't want the boss to have to remove the attack slow harmful effect, because that would increase the amount of damage that she does, as well as the amount of turns that she gains. So that will make your runs pretty much unstable as well. Now, Pang is not easy to summon, no? So, and I've found out that adding Yen instead of Pang is also the same, no? So it produces the same effect. Uh, the Having the Rakshasa move second is kind of arbitrary in my experience, but in a sense, it also helps out in ensuring that the attack speeds the attack speed slow is ensured to be applied to the boss. Pardon my voice. I'm a teenager. Feeling teenager, just kidding. But anyway, so for the rune sets on this, or before that, the speed tuning, so it's the same as with your uh, triple Icaru Verde for DB10, and just add a Rakshasa in the middle. Now for the rune set, so this is the stats of my Pang. So as you will see, I focus on giving her all the damage that she can get. So with 81 crit rate, 235 crit damage, and plus 1464 bonus attack from stats. And I also provided her artifacts with additional damage by speed. But I think the best for her is really the critical damage, single target critical damage, as well as critical damage depending on the enemy's condition. And from time to time, she will die, but as long as the left tower is already dead, your team will be able to survive the onslaught of your boss. So crucial here is making sure Pang survives. Crucial here is to make sure that Pang survives until the left tower in the boss stage is dead. So beyond that, the triple Ikaru bird can pretty much kill the boss. So as I emphasized a while ago, yen can also be used in behalf of Pang in this team. So this is the stats of my Yen. It's relatively more achievable compared to Pang, and Yen benefits more for additional damage uh, because she can bio proc on her own. No, so but nonetheless, you don't necessarily need too much high of stats for them to work in this dungeon. If you will look at the runes of my Pang, these are just hero runes. Oh, but this one's legend. This one is hero. Legend. Ooh, no. Ancient, hero, and legend. No. So I take back what I said. So they need Pang has some pretty nice runes on her. But my Yen doesn't necessarily have. So this one is a legend, but poop power-ups. This one is just rare. This one is just hero. Another legend. Oops. Hero and rare. So not even max artifacts. So I'll stop this and change it with Yen so that we can also see how Yen performs. But in my experience, I really prefer Pang because she adds a layer of safety by reducing the cooldown of the speed buff of the boss. And Yen doesn't have that. Although the pros of using Yen is that Yen can kill the boss much faster than Pang. Even with a poorer rune set, Yen dishes out much more damage than Pang. So let's try that again, but this time we will change Pang with Yen, and let's see whether she will perform similarly. So the reason why Yen can kill the boss much faster than Pang is because her second skill deals with continuous damage. And since the boss mechanic is that whenever you decrease her attack bar, she will gain an extra turn. So it the dots given by Yen, it promotes the what do you call this? The reduction in terms of the max HP of the boss faster. However, as I've said, so I'm more for safety for this dungeon because there's a lot of RNG in play in this dungeon, so that's why I use Pang. But if you were not around during the time of Pang HOH, then definitely Yen is an equally viable option. And there you see the RNG killed this team with Pam. No, so anyway, so I think you know now why I prefer Pam for this team. So I guess we just have 10, no, 10 monsters that you will need for uh, Cairos dungeon farming. So, and those 10 are the 3 Icarus, 2 Milias, Lucian, Pang, Tatu, Astar, Verdihill, and Sa. So, but I would argue that Yen would still be useful. It's just that probably this stat is not enough, you know, for her to work her charms on Punisher script B10. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope you had fun, and I hope this was helpful, no, for especially for those of you who are doing FRR today and in the future. So if you've liked this video, please subscribe to the channel, put down your comments, and also like the video. That would help me a lot, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!